Okay, so some preparatory remarks. I wanted just to add to last week's discussion. We were talking about the oral law, and we were explaining how it's evolving. So the evolution of the oral law is in primarily two areas. One obvious area is the constant discovery of new explanation and insight. That's number one. And that's constantly, it's a burgeoning knowledge that increases over time. As you mentioned last week, with the advent of the Hasidic movement, explosion of insight and discovery not revealed ever before. That's one area of the evolution and growth of the oral law. The other is also in the sages adding various fences around the Torah over time to ensure that Torah law is observed. And so there's that area as well of a rabbinic law that's added as a safeguard to Torah law. And then, of course, there's the constant discussion of the application of the law to contemporary and changing circumstances. Electricity. So how does that figure on Shabbos? Can one open, turn a light on or not, etc.? So the oral law is constantly adapting itself that way, applying itself to the new situations. There are other areas as well, but we'll leave that for in our further discussion. So as I mentioned to you in my first email, that we're going to be looking at two Mishnas, but I would imagine only the first one tonight. God willing, we'll continue next week. That it's customary for the mourner to read, to learn, to recite 3 times a day. It's actually it's 2 chapters, 2 entire chapters, 3 times a day at the conclusion of the respective services, at the conclusion of which he says an additional Kaddish. Because Mishna is very much connected to the soul. As you might be picking up as I say the word Mishna, and I said that deliberately slowly, the word Mishna has the same letters as the word Neshama, soul. And so by studying Mishna, this helps the soul. So I want you to know, in many circles, it's customary when you go to a shiva, since we're talking about shiva, let me tell you, that at a shiva, we're not allowed to speak unless spoken to by the mourner. We're there to offer support, solace, and comfort to the mourner. It's not a social event and certainly not a party. The custom is that, again, so no one speaks. That's not a custom, that's a law. Now, the custom is, they put out at the place where people are sitting shiva, they put out these sheets where all 61 tractates of the Mishnah are listed with an empty line next to it, and people fill out their names so as to learn the Mishnah, the entire body, the 6 orders of the Mishnah we spoke about last week, by the Shloshim. And that is a great, great gift to the neshama. It sometimes happens that the person was so well known, popular, and loved that it studied more than once, which means, several hundred people are participating sometimes in the study of the Mishnah. So it is customary, again, there's 2 particular chapters. Let's not be confused here. Aside from the entire Mishnah being studied, hopefully, for the deceased by the 30 days, in addition to that, the mourner, at the end of every service, says to himself or learns 2 chapters, at the conclusion of which he says the last words of the last chapter aloud, and then a final Kaddish. What are these 2 chapters? Of all of the 6 orders and the 61 tractates of the Mishnah, what is chosen? So the first one, the first chapter which we're going to deal with, the first Mishnah of the first chapter, as you can see, is tractate Keilm, Mishnah Keilm, chapter 24, Mishnah number 1. Why is this chosen? Because this deals with purity. I'll soon get into the details. and the soul is undergoing a process of purity now, or purification, cleansing, disentanglement, which is not an easy process for most of us, by studying the laws of purification of vessels and purification, this helps, especially the loved one doing this, helps the soul during the process of cleansing. So we're going to look at tonight the first law, God willing, and next week, the final Mishnah at the end of the second chapter, which is from, you can see on this page in front of you, mikvaot. Mikvah, of course, is a place we immerse to purify ourselves. Again, the neshama is going through a process of purification. Hence, these two tractates are chosen. Now, if you can see this, and if you can on the screen, mikvaot, in addition to dealing with mikvah and purification, if you can see that the last five letters, the last five Mishnas, the first letter is enlarged. And it spells the word neshama. The last five teachings, the first letter of each of these Mishnas teachings, Nun, Shin, Mem, Hey, spells the word neshama, which is what we're focusing on when we study this. In particular, the mourner, it's to help the soul in its elevation. Okay. Let's read the first Mishnah and understand it, just what it's saying on a simple level, and then the depth. There are three different types of shields. A bent shield is susceptible to midrash uncleanliness. I'll just read this and I'll explain in a moment. A shield used in the arena is susceptible to corpse uncleanliness, and the Arabian toy shield is pure from all uncleanliness. What is this talking about? I'll now explain. The laws of purity and impurity, for the most part, do not apply nowadays. They will again when Mashiach comes, hopefully, today. To be sure, there are some laws of purity and impurity that remain in full force today, most notably the laws of the nida, the menstruate woman during marriage, which we're all probably generally familiar with, and she immerses in the mikveh once a month. And then husband and wife reunite. That law remains in force. But most of the other laws do not, and will be only when the temple stood. Reason? Because most of the other laws are relevant only when the temple stands. How so? A person is ritually impure, is forbidden to enter the temple grounds, or to partake of sacrificial or sanctified food. Sacrificial food would be an offering that he brought in the temple for a host number of reasons. Many of these offerings, part of the meat is consumed on the altar and part by the Jew who brought it. You can't bring that offering, whether it's a Thanksgiving offering or a sin offering or a guilt offering or a free will offering or a holiday offering or the Passover lamb, one of the obligatory offerings everybody had to bring and partake of. You could not if you were ritually impure. So the temple stood, being ritually pure was relevant if you were going to the temple, and sometimes you had to go, or if you're going to partake of sanctified sacred food. The Kohanim in particular, who represented the Jewish people, the functionaries in the temple, they always had to be vigilant about not contracting ritual impurity, because they, as we learned last week, if you recall, the Kohen would eat grains, fruit, vegetables, grains given to him by the Israelite farmer. He could only eat it in a state of ritual purity. So bottom line is, in the temple stood, mikveh was a huge part of everyday Jewish life for the Kohanim and for the rest of the population on occasion, several times a year. Recent archaeological discoveries have discovered all around the old city of Jerusalem in private homes, mikvehs that they opened to the pilgrims who would come to Jerusalem 3 times a year, Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot, and had to be ritually pure before they would enter into the temple precincts. And so they had mikvehs in their homes, some of them beautiful mikvehs, and some of the tiles still intact 2,000 years later. And they would use it themselves, but also open it to the vast numbers of Jews who would converge on Jerusalem at least 3 times a year. Again, Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot. Now, what makes one ritually impure? There are different kinds of defiling agencies. And the laws, friends, number the thousands. I should just share with you what is relevant for us to understand the teaching we just read. That is as follows. Who, first of all, what and who can become impure? The answer is virtually everything. People, clothing, food, utensils are all subject to ritual impurity. They can remain impure, but if they have contracted ritual impurity and they have not been purified, the one who touches it or carries it then becomes impure and is barred from the things I just described. So during temple times, they used to purify vessels as well. Clothing and even food can be purified in some instances. Now, I started saying, and I've got to get back to this, what causes ritual impurity? There's different kinds of defiling agencies. The most severe and yet the most natural defiling agency is death itself. A Jewish person passes away, God forbid, anything under the canopy, the roof, where the cadaver is found is ritually impure. Tomei could remain that way, or if it wants to be used during the time of purity, has to be purified. Everything, from beds, furniture, depending on large furniture not, but utensils, all become ritually impure. So that's one kind of defiling agency. Then there are other defiling agencies, particularly the carcass of 8 crawling creatures, like the mole, the toad, the lizard, and others. They also convey ritual impurity. And then there's also the human being can convey ritual impurity. I'll give you just one example, which is relevant to the understanding of our Mishnah. A male who experiences a discharge of semen, but sometimes people confuse it with gonorrhea. It's not, it's something else, but it is a discharge and it comes in an unnatural way, meaning to say it's an unhealthy discharge. And it issues from the body, how to describe this, not in the way, I have to describe this in direct terms. There's no stimulus, the body is not stimulated, and there's just this flow that comes from the male organ. That renders a person also ritually impure. Now, what's relevant to understand is if such a person, without directly touching an object, but if he sits on an object made to sit on, like a chair, a couch, or a bed, just sitting on it, the object becomes ritually impure. Even if he didn't actually touch it, maybe 10 sheets and blankets between him and the bed. If he had such a discharge and has not yet purified himself, whatever he touches becomes impure, and even sitting or lying on an object that is made to sit and lie on will become ritually impure. If it's not made to sit or lie on, he doesn't render it impure unless he physically touches it. Is that clear? Or moves it. But just sitting on it and not physically coming in contact with it because there's a sheet or a blanket or something, he would not render it impure if that object is not made to be used to sit or lean on or sleep on. I hope this is kind of clear. So what's being discussed in this Mishnah? There's 3 kinds of shield the Mishnah addresses. And the Mishnah addresses 3 cases: the bent or the wraparound shield, a shield used in training, that's the arena, we'll soon describe them, and the Arabian shield. And the Mishnah says the first one is susceptible to the most severe kind of impurity. We'll address it in a second. The second one, not the most severe, but regular impurity. And the third one, impervious to impurity, can't become ritually impure. Let's explain. I hope I've armed you with enough information that what I'm going to tell you now is going to make sense. So there are three different types of shields. A bent or wraparound shield is susceptible to midras, uncleanliness. Midras means, as I described this person before who has this unhealthy issue, sitting, lying on it, will render this shield ritually impure and certainly touching it. Why? Friends, this shield is made not only, that's how they made them in those days, for use in battle, but it wraps around him because the back is open so he can hold it and so it can be mobile, but it's also used as a bed. It's also used as a bed during, in the lull of the battle. In those days, they used to square off, at an appointed time and till the last man stands or till one side surrenders, generally for during the day. At any rate, but they did sleep. So he would sleep in, it served also as a bed. The point being, since it's made also to serve as a bed, therefore it's a vessel, so it's susceptible to ritual impurity, including the ritual, it's called midras, which means to put pressure on, including this impurity of the example that we gave, and there are several others, of this fellow who had this unnatural discharge. If such a person would sit on this shield, he would become ritually impure. Even if he didn't directly touch it, and certainly touched by any defiling agent, it certainly becomes impure. Friends, bear with me. We're going to get to the spiritual dimension. It's going to blow you away. But bear with me, because you're thinking, for goodness sakes, this is archaic and irrelevant. No one uses shields anymore. But Torah is eternal. Torah is eternal and divine, and all of these laws are exquisitely relevant, as you will presently hear. And let's, God willing, get there. So the next one, a shield used in the arena is susceptible to corpse uncleanliness. Now, this is a shield that they would use, go down to in the words of our sages, the king's field in order to train. All right, he's training. So he's holding the shield in his left hand, the sword in his right hand, and it's for protection. So it's not made to sit on or lie on. So it's not susceptible to the midras uncleanliness, but it is susceptible to the classic death, the inevitable till Mashiach comes, natural death that would happen, and other forms of uncleanliness. If this shield is touched by it, or in the case of the corpse, even under the same roof, the shield becomes impure, would have to be immersed in a mikveh. I guess, by the way, I should tell you, we all know that Kohanim avoid going to a cemetery, avoid being in contact with death. Paper mints, for example, has, I don't know if you're aware of this, a separate room. It's not attached, but it's very close. Doesn't share a common roof for the Kohanim to attend funeral services. That's because we expect Mashiach's coming any day, and the Kohanim have to be in the groove, got to be accustomed to avoiding ritual impurity, which is why for thousands of years they do. And there's many things that we do, like washing our hands, friends, before eating bread. It all has to do with this. That's a mini mikveh. I'm not going to go into this now, but just to keep us all current, what's the French word? Akovo. No, that's French Hebrew combination. Current and ready when Mashiach comes to observe the law as we should. All right. Parenthesis. Close it. Continue. The Arabian toy shield is pure from all uncleanliness. This is a ceremonial shield that is used in sport, for games, for song, dance. And since it isn't functional, it's impervious to impurity. In order for a vessel or any object to be susceptible to ritual purity, it's got to be a functional object. Since this is decorative and not functional, It's only, right, it doesn't actually serve a real function. It's simply for entertainment purposes. Therefore, whatever ritual impurity, this could be in a house, right, where a person had died, it will not contract ritual impurity. Only functional vessels would. Clear? So here we have the three cases. The wraparound shield, susceptible to even the midras, the unhealthy, unnatural impurity. A shield used for training purposes, susceptible only to natural impurity, the corpse uncleanliness, and the gitzas haraviyin in the Hebrew, is impervious and pure from all uncleanliness. Before we go into any depth, which we will right now, again, we're studying, the mourner learns this because the soul is a vessel and the soul is going through cleanliness right now, a cleansing in the nether world. And so by studying this, we're helping the soul. And after we have finished explaining the depth of this mission in the light of Chassidus, you'll have an appreciation of how this helps the soul, beyond the fact that it's holy words of Torah and dedicated to the dear departed. Let's begin our journey now in understanding the spiritual dimension to all of this. Friends, these three shields represent three different levels or people, if you like. It could be the same person at different times and stages. If we have time, we'll get to that, but let's separate this. Three different individuals in terms of their spiritual standing. In terms of their spiritual standing, their whole spiritual status, their relationship with life. So the wraparound or bent shield, I'm just going to give you words now and then we'll fill in the blanks. I will outline and keep on revisiting as we paint the picture with greater detail. The wraparound shield susceptible to midras uncleanliness. Who is this spiritually? What is this describing? This is the soldier on the battlefield, right? She's got this shield, and it's the purposes of which are to protect him during the battle, and he sleeps on it in the lulls between fighting. This represents someone for whom life is a war. It's a battle, and a constant battle. And therefore the person is in need of the maximum protection. All right, let's leave that and revisit what battling what. I just mean making a living. We'll soon define that. But I just want to, so that we are not going to be confused, we're going to go through the 1, 2, 3 and back and forth 1, 2, 3 as we, right, paint the picture. The second level, a shield used in the arena. So he's training. He's training. It's not a real battle, but he's not really threatened. The fellow he's sparring with is not going to kill him, but he's becoming stronger. He's becoming, he's developing his skills. He is growing. This is like exercise and being in the arena and training. So he's developing. So life for this person isn't about a battle. It's about self-development. So far, so good. And the third is a level, an attitude towards life, a very lofty level, where life is a celebration. It's a pure celebration, delight and joy. That's the Arabian translation. I'm not fond of the translation, frankly, here, but at any rate, so it's a ceremonial, celebratory shield. Life is a celebration. So we're clear so far. Life's a battle. Life's about growth, challenges to grow, or life is a celebration. What do you mean by this, friends? We mean this in a very deep spiritual level, in ascending order. The first level of person is someone whom all three, I have to tell you, all three are observant and good of a Jewish law and scholarly and what have you. Looking at them, you may not even be able to discern the difference between 1, 2, or 3. I speak of what's happening inside the heart and the mind. So the first level is someone who materialism is attractive. And every moment it's a battle. It's a battle. The world is real. The temptations are real. The desires are real. I really want to get angry. I am genuinely lazy. And I am sometimes deeply lustful. And a host of other vices. So I need a bent shield. I need a wraparound protection as I engage the world. Because in every direction, I'm assaulted by temptation of sometimes contrasting and various degrees. But life is a constant battle. Why is it a constant battle? Because I'm tempted to go there. It talks to me. This person is clearly not at a stage of transcendence. He's doing the right thing, but at a great cost. The cost is the battle. And God willing, he's victorious over the pull of his evil inclination that wants to drag him to unholy things or even sinful things. Not just materialistic, but downright transgression. Let's explore this further. He sleeps in this. What is sleep? Physically. Just observe somebody sleeping. What do we know? What do we note? What do we see? The head, the heart, reproductive organs, and the feet, they're all on the same level, like an animal. The human being, Hashem made us to be walk, we stand. We can see the heavens and the sky. The head is here, the heart is here. What ought to be is the mind controls the heart, and the heart guides the behavior, all governed by raising the eyes heavenward and seeing the Creator. This person is not at that level. He is in a spiritual sleep-like state. Again, he's not seeing the Creator. He's not in a state of inspiration. He knows what's right and he struggles with it, God willing, successfully. But it's a constant battle because on a spiritual level, mind, heart, lower organs, upper organs, it's all one thing. And it's a constant pull on all of these levels to the materialistic, the hedonistic, the selfish, the indulgent, and even the sinful. Such a person is susceptible to the midrash uncleanliness, which means it's an unhealthy discharge. And that's symbolic of sin. It's symbolic of well, actually, the discharge here is, as I told you, it's semen. So this is wasted life, but not just wasted potential life, but in an unhealthy way, where there's not even pleasure. There's not even pleasure. Now, this is an incredibly powerful insight. And it tells us that if our life is going to be, constantly defined by materialism, even if we're struggling against it, and if we get caught up in it, we'll end up being kind of trapped by it, even when we're not enjoying it, because we just can't get out. That's this uncleanliness is a discharge, but there's not even any pleasure in it. It's an unhealthy one. So what this symbolizes is that when the battle is lost, the stakes are high. The stakes are transgression, and even worse than that is being caught up in a materialistic lifestyle that's always got to be more and more and more and more, and not even enjoying it anymore. The constant need to up the ante, more money, a more effective drug, a bigger experience, a more exciting one, and in the end, all of it exhausted. We've exhausted every possibility and experience, but we don't know anything else, and that's our life. So that's pretty tragic, but that's where this person could end up, which is why he needs the wraparound shield. There's a lot of symbolism to this, but the wraparound shield is to protect him from falling into indulgence, sin, and trapped in it, that I'm doing this stuff and I really don't enjoy it anymore. But that's the bed I've made, so I'm lying in it. Next level, a higher level in the service of God. A shield used in the arena. We describe this is the training shield. This is the person's attitude towards life is radically different. He may have begun level 1, but progressed to level 2, and that is he realizes that life is only here to bring out all these tests. He relishes it. All of this is all to bring out the best in me, the depth in me, my devotion, my loyalty, and so on. It's like going to the gym. It's hard work. And you're pushing against resistance as you lift those weights and do those push-ups and squats. But no one's forcing you to do that. You go there happily, and as you're doing it, you've got this deep satisfaction that you are becoming stronger and you're growing. Especially if your trainer points out, hey, you just did one more than you did last week. That's a really good feeling. So life is a battle, but not like the first level where it's just, do or die. The whole point of the battle is that for my benefit, that I grow. So the world for level number 2, for this fella, this man or woman, doesn't have the same whole temptation and appeal like it does for the first level. This level 2, we see through the world. We know we're only here in order to be tested and to grow. And our true pleasure and delight is in the spiritual. We enjoy Torah study. We enjoy Judaism. It isn't a struggle to keep Shabbos. It might be for the first guy, close the store and keep Shabbos. It's a battle. Hopefully he wins it. But the second guy is not a battle to keep Shabbos or keep kosher. He enjoys it, loves it, and understands it, and appreciates the discipline that these mitzvahs afford him or her, and the beautiful, transcendent, moral, spiritual, godly life that's the reward of the observant, here and now. This person is only susceptible to corpse uncleanliness, the natural forms of impurity. They always lurk, got to be careful. But not susceptible to the midrash. Remember, the midrash is the unhealthy discharge of life joylessly. Not susceptible to that. The world is just not that seductive because we see through it. We are always cognizant that we are on this mission, and the mission is that we grow and reveal the depth of our spiritual metal, like the gym. Then there's a third level. This is a very lofty level, friends. This is someone that life is a celebration. What does that mean? This is selfless. I'm here because God desires that I come down to the world and make it a home for him. It's all about bringing joy to my Creator. In this third scenario, it's a performance. They're using these shields in some kind of performance. He sees himself as simply, or herself, as a performer to bring joy to his or her Maker. It isn't about me, my battles, or my growth even. It's totally self-transcendent. Life is this game. We mean this in the most profound, deep, and virtuous sense, meaning I am here to bring delight and pleasure to Hashem. Let's look at, friends. Let's look at that if I can get it. Menashe?
It's just coming in.
It's coming in. Okay, I don't know why I'm so daft at this. No. What did he say? 1 second.
Share screen.
Here? No. No, it's not happening here. No, new share. That's it. Oh, okay. So now, friends, double click. Here we go. So follow me as we go through this chart. So here we have the 3 kinds of shield. This is tractate Keilm, the top. the laws, Keilm means vessels, chapter 4, Mishna 1. Wraparound shield, training shield, ceremonial shield. Wraparound shield susceptible to all impurities, even midras. One of the examples being the Zav, unhealthy emission. The training shield, because it's not made to sleep on or lie on, the person isn't horizontal at this level. The person stands with his head above his heart, not like an animal. Could you imagine, friends? Most animals don't know there's a sky. They don't know there's a sky. They never picked up their heads unless they turned on their back. And then they're probably squirming to get back on their feet. All they know is the grass and their reproductive organs and the same organ to relieve themselves, and water. It's all the animal knows. It's all at one level. So that's kind of the first level, the struggle with all of these sensual desires, temptations, and money, and again, laziness, and every vice that God created us with, he's struggling with, and it's a constant battle. And hence the danger lurks to slip into and succumb to transgression. The training shield is only susceptible to natural impurity, and the ceremonial shield, because it's not functional, is impervious to any kind of impurity. So the spiritual experiences life as a battle, a test, God's desire. The danger or the challenge for level 1 is not to descend into transgression, not to end up spiritually with unhealthy emissions, as it were. This applies to male and female, mind you. I'm not going into all of the detail, but you get the drift, I'm sure. Level 2, a higher level, his struggle is he may succumb to natural pleasures, but not unhealthy ones, because he sees through life. He realizes constantly aware, cognizant that it's all a test and it's for my good, and that's why it's there. So it doesn't hold such an allure, because he knows it's only there to test me. It isn't intrinsically valid and real. He sees through it. And then the ceremonial shield, this person is trusting, put him or her anywhere, because it isn't about me, totally selfless, pure, not susceptible, impervious to all impurity, living a life that's simply carrying out God's desire. Now we get to the deep part, the third column, level of godliness. Where's my watch? We don't go over time. Pardon? Yeah, we've got a few minutes. And there's so much more I want to share with you about these 3 levels. So friends, as you can see, let's just identify the names here of God. There's Elohim. Then there's the tetragrammaton, which means the 4-lettered holy name of God, Yud Ke Vav Ke. And then, friends, there's the essence of God beyond any name, because a name is a description. So God would refer to his essence by simply saying, Anochi, I. And we refer to God's essence, his very unknowable, beyond description being, with the simple word Ata, you, in our daily prayers. But let's go back to these 3, to the first 2 names. Why does one God have so many names? And mind you, there are 5 other names. Why? Because they all describe different ways that God manifests his presence. Elohim, friends, means God manifesting finite, descriptive, systematic properties and qualities. Chesed, just to throw this out for those of us familiar, Chesed, Gevurah, etc. Elohim, friends, means actually Lord or judge. An earthly judge in scripture, in the book of Exodus, Parshas Mishpatim is called, and elsewhere, Elohim, because angels are also called Elohim. Because what does a judge do? A judge draws lines, discriminate, guilty, not guilty, liable, not liable, innocent, guilty, pay, don't pay. It's all about definition and boundaries. So God, as he manifests himself in descriptive properties like wisdom and beauty and glory and love, they're all descriptions. That's referring to God when he manifests, or as he manifests those properties, we call him Elohim. We don't see this on the page, but Elohim has the same numerical value as the word hateva, nature. Nature is finite. Nature has all of these different properties and components. What's responsible for nature having these different properties and components? God. God, as he manifests and invests in creating this multiplicit, varied, vast universe, physical and spiritual, all with different components, different definitions, and different properties. That's Elohim, nature. In a word, God's finite manifestations. Then there's God's infinite revelation, otherworldly. That's represented by this holy name of God, the Yud Kei Vav Kei. That actually means the eternal one, beyond time. Elohim is God invested in time. Yud Kei Vav Kei is God as he transcends time and space. In fact, this word here, friends, the tetragrammaton, it's so holy we don't even pronounce it, is actually, amongst other things, three words fused together. Haya, Haive, Yeh. Past, present, and future, all fused into one, beyond time, infinite, transcendent. Miracles would be a manifestation of the Yud Kei Vav Kei. Nature is a manifestation or a consequence of Elohim. We're clear? And then there's God himself, the I beyond all description, all name, the essence. Essence doesn't mean anything. It just means, I'm not defining what it is. Essence means the very core being of God beyond even infinite and beyond finite. Now, there's a reason why this column appears as it does. Let's explain why. These are three progressive levels of relationship with God, relating to God as Elohim, relating to God as Yud Kei Vav Kei, or relating to God's very essence. And I hasten to add, and we're running out of time, I've been describing this till now as three different people, but the truth is the same model also applies for everyone. It's all relative. So I'll just tell you now, I'm going to throw this out. This is weekday, friends. Elohim is relating to God weekday, the weekday mission, the weekday relationship. Yud Kei Vav Kei would be Shabbos and Yom Tov, and Anochi, Yom Kippur at Ne'ilah. Now, the truth is that's also every day. Oh, it's only once a year we relate to the essence of God. It's every day. But I'm just demonstrating this in the broader brushstrokes of the Jewish calendar. Weekday is Elohim, and Shabbos and Yom Tov is transcendence. Weekday we engage the world. Shabbos and Yom Tov we transcend the world. And Yom Kippur at Ne'ilah we touch the very essence of God. But this is daily. And it applies, as you can see, to everyone. Even though earlier we spoke about three different individuals, but everything is relative. And in context, these three levels, wrap around, training, ceremonial, describes every soul in its mission here in the world. And the mourner is studying this and learning this to be inspired by the messages contained by these three levels of shield. And that is meant to be a reflection on the dear departed loved one by appreciating what this person achieved in their life. And if they didn't completely, their loved one will, as their proxy, continue it. Inspired by them and dedicated to them. But let's go back now. I want to kind of explain, give us some measure of insight as to how how these all match up. So we said the wraparound shield, the first level, is a person that struggles constantly with life, engages life. We said that's the weekday, where we're out there in the world, we're supposed to be, to engage the world and face it. So when we relate to godliness at the level of Elohim, because we're relating to finite manifestations of godliness invested in nature, then from the perspective of Elohim, friends, nature is real. On the contrary, all of the properties of nature are a consequence of another one of the attributes that are contained in Elohim. Elohim, friends, in Hebrew grammar is plural. Does this shock you? I hope it does. It's one God, and when we use a plural term, yes, because this is describing God as he manifests in plurality and all kinds of properties and attributes which play themselves out in the various components of nature, from the subatomic particles to the external construct. So if that's all I'm relating to, only Elohim alone, that's my level of relationship with God. If my relationship with God is stuck on Elohim, in other words, God being wise and wonderful and of divine intelligence, it's all part of Elohim. Well, the divine designer created this world. So that gives this world, real legitimacy. So I'm drawn by it. I'm impressed by it. And the danger to be totally drawn into it, even to its very unhealthy and ugly dimensions. So to be stuck only in Elohim is to be forever in this battle. But to some degree, we need to be. We've got to be there out there in the weekday and deal with the realities. But then there comes Shabbos and Yom Tov, and we're lifted to experience the Yud Kei Vav Kei. We're lifted to experience the infinite revelation of God in the face of which the whole world becomes insignificant. So why am I here? Just to test me, just to bring out the depth in me. It has no intrinsic value compared to the Yud Kei Vav Kei. Finite compared to infinite is valueless. So when we experience the transcendence of Shabbos, this is what has to happen on Shabbos, friends. What can happen, should happen, and will happen. On Shabbos, we enter a space where all of those struggles and fears and worries of the week just melt. They shrink. They become insignificant as we are lifted to an embrace within the divine of God's infinite, eternal truth. What God unlocks that day in us is, and again, it's also every day, but we're separating this, is the level of our soul that is infinite. Elohim is relating to the finite levels of the soul, the conscious, descriptive, personality, mind, heart, limits, which separates each one of us are all different characters and different levels. That's all part of Elohim. But there's a deeper level to the soul, a transcendent, where pure faith comes from and pure trust, in the face of which all of the problems melt. We see through it all. It's all part of a plan. It's all only there to test us, and don't take it seriously, and don't get so excited when you have it, and don't get so upset when you lose it. Shabbos gives us, nourishes that level of the soul every week. So we go back into the week, we bring that faith and that fortitude and that vision, that perception in the struggles of the reality of the week of making a living, whatever it is that we're dealing with. But on Shabbos, we see the world as training. It's all it is. It's only there. It's not real, and it's intrinsically. In the face of the infinite, it shrinks to, it's only there to test me. And therefore, it can never, ever be a real obstacle. No matter what the accountant says about my business on Saturday, on Shabbos, the Jew plugs into a place. He's beyond. We're miraculous people. We're not bound by the laws of nature. He closes his business, and lo and behold, he closes his business. It was all a test, that's all. And everything that he faces that's difficult, it's simply a test. That's why it's there. It doesn't have inherent value as opposed to level one. In the face of Shem Elohim, it does, and it's real, it's enjoyable, and it's tempting. But this level, can you compare any physical pleasure to the beauty of sitting at your Shabbos table with your wife and children, your husband and children, and the children repeating what they learned in Cheder that week? Is there any pleasure in the world that comes close? Of course not. Compound all the physical pleasures in one blinding moment of ecstasy. It comes and it goes. This moment is forever. This nachas is forever. This connection is forever. And all of the struggles of the week was all worth it for this moment of transcendence. And in that moment of transcendence, we see through it all. That's the Yud Kei Vav Kei. But then there's a level of the Anoichi. Friends, this is a very lofty level where it's completely self-transcendent. It isn't about me, not my battle, not my test. I see life as the privilege to be able to bring pleasure to Hashem. Huh? The essence of God, Hashem himself. Here's the incredible thing. God's desire, God's deepest desire that draws on his deepest self, the core I of God is, I want you, he says to each one of us, to make your life and this world a home that I can share with you. I desire you, says God, and I want you to open up to me and allow me into your life. I want you to feel my desire and my love. That's the whole purpose. The privilege to be able to do a mitzvah wherein we cause pleasure to Hashem. Why? Because when I did that mitzvah means to connect. When I did that mitzvah, Hashem connected me and I put a smile on the divine face. This is a whole level. This is not struggle of any kind. This is Yom Kippur Ne'ilah. The moment of Ne'ilah, the Shema Yisrael. There's no struggle. There's no battle. Life isn't a test. And it's not transcendent. There's simply Hashem and his truth. And the awesome privilege and the great pleasure, therefore, the great pleasure and desire that we have for Hashem, knowing that he desires to be part of my life. This is the core essence of the soul. 3 levels of the soul: external, internal, or maybe I should point here. The soul, external, internal essence. So again, the mourner is saying this because the mourner is talking and devoting the Kaddish to the loved one, to the neshama that came down to the world. And it's to serve, to experience this, the soul's own self and God on all 3 levels, Elikim, Yudke, Vavke, and the Anochi, the very essence. And as we said, it's like the weekday engagement, transcendence, and oneness, touching the very essence of God. This is all hinted to, friends, in the language of the Mishna. I hope it's Gewalt. Hang on. Menashe is they're gone. All right. Where did I go over here to share? Sorry. Just get up the 2 things again. I'm sorry. The Mishna, the original text. You'll see it then. You can't learn 2 minutes before you got to do something. You got to practice.
Where is it? Which one?
This one. Which what?
This one.
This one. That one. Yeah. So friends, look here with me. Just click on it twice. Should open. No, I'm telling you. All right, no, friends. For those of us who know a little bit of Hebrew, this is.
You can't see it yet.
You can't see it. Make it bigger. Bigger. Okay. Do you see it? I just want to focus on this one word here, the ditzatz ha'arvin, the shield. The word Arab, friends, comes from the word orev, sweet. It's a very, very deep level we're talking here, that is pure from all impurity. Sweet, life is sweet because of the great privilege to bring sweetness to Hashem, to bring him delight and pleasure. And the word Eidov is also implied. The Eidov means to fuse together, Iruv, to mix. Here is a level where the Jew fuses and is inseparable from his creator. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, the climactic moment, again, of Yom Kippur. Now, friends, next week, God willing, we're going to look at this final Mishnah from Mikvaot. And on the surface, if you looked at it before, it looks like, what is going on? This bed's going into mud, and there's a needle, and there's sticks in it. We're going to learn the Mishna on its simple level, and then we're going to learn what it means spiritually, and that is as follows. This Mishna, I hope I was successful in conveying, conveys the mission on the three levels we described: engagement, transcendence, and essence. That's the first teaching the mourner says each day, 3 times a day. The final Mishnah, which he says aloud, after which he says the final Kaddish, describes the cleansing of the soul after 120 years. And even now, the cleansing that we can do if, and we're all human, we become susceptible to whatever level of uncleanliness. The shield is the theory, but sometimes the arrow can pierce it, or we are forgetful to use the shield. So there's a need to cleanse, to heal. This Mishnah, chapter 7, Mishnah 7, contains the spiritual elixir, the spiritual guidance and inspiration to cleanse ourselves and purify ourselves of impurity, of spiritual malaise and disease, of failure, not just in the world to come, but here in this world. And that, God willing, awaits us next week.